Nice dab. Yeah. Nice.
Oh,
I'm not gonna do the shoo. I can't do it.
Well, look, you only have to show the arm, so.
Oh yeah, it's true. You don't know.
No.
Good. Let's all start flipping.
No one's
water
fooled. I'm
bottles.
sitting on a couch. No. It's great. Cool. Already, all set.
Awesome.
Oh no, I'm in the middle.
Yeah.
Sir.
I mean,
In the hot seat.
I can focus on whoever I want.
Yeah.
I can do this,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
YouTube saves chat now.
That's great.
What?
YouTube saves chat now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
So-
awesome.
The people who watch the stream later can see the chat, which is kind of
Nice. Good shit.
Yeah, I was just playing around with the video and the stuff we can do. I could change through each individual person's screen.
You can?
Yeah,
do
so
that.
if someone's making a really cool point, I can focus on your face and make you the center of the stream.
And
Oh,
the
man,
that
the control
throw off
room.
their game.
Nice. Solid.
Okay, so should we do it?
Last week.
So, Chad, if
Yeah.
anything's bad with the sounds or the levels, just let me know, and then I'll try to fix it.
All right.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, Kat says levels sound good.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ask the Once and Future Nerd for the end of Chapter 4. I am Zach. I am here with Christian. Say hello, Christian.
Hey, guys.
With Paul.
Hey.
With Shannon.
Hi, everybody.
And with Greg.
Hello.
So welcome to this discussion. First off, if this is your first time ever hearing of us at the Once and Future Nerd, thanks for joining us. This discussion is going to have plenty of spoilers, so this might not be the place to start. We now have a fancy new welcome page, so head to onceandfuturenerd.com/welcome, and that'll help you get started. That being said, since the last time we've done one of these chats, we've gotten a ton of new listeners. We had Jumbotron on the Adventure Zone, and that got us a bunch of listeners and just general growing. So for all our new listeners, thank you and welcome. It's awesome to have you. And also for our new patrons, thank you so much. These live streams are a direct result of our Patreon following, so thank you for that. So with all that introduction, let's get into the discussion. This chapter 4 of the Once and Future Nerd, was the pirate chapter, so we'll be talking about pirates today. And just a good place to start, you can't have a pirate chapter without a pirate queen. So Shannon, it feels like you've been with us forever, but this was the first time you really got to show off your acting skills to our audience. So welcome. I guess how did you like it?
Oh, it was a blast. I also co-wrote parts 2 and 4 as well. Yeah, it was terrific. I'm grateful to have been asked to come on board and to tackle some of the issues that came up with this relationship between these two really strong female lead characters. So yeah, it's a good time so far.
Awesome. And I don't know if you've been following it, but the internet seems to be appreciating your performance of Ren.
Cool.
They're really into it. One tweet that we got, where I'll protect the person's identity because it may be a little embarrassing, but they said, "So I was drinking my coffee while driving yesterday, and when Ren said reclaiming my time, I did a legit spit take all over the inside of my windshield. To make matters worse, I tried turning on the wipers to fix the problem."
Love it. Yeah, Christian shared that with me in a DM, and I was so happy that he did until I've gotten that reaction. We ended up recording an alternate response, and had decided and decided that closer to when the chapter rather was released, that we would decide which one to use. And what I'd said to Christian was, the people who get that reference will really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and take that risk if you're willing to. And I'm glad that he was on board. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was meant to be an homage to the incredible Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Maxine, yeah, who's been a real beacon at this time, and someone who's using her power and speaking truth to power. So I was happy to have an opportunity to slip that in and have it make sense both in the scene and sort of as an anachronistic, again, homage to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I was a little. I'm so sorry. Excuse me 1 second, guys. I need to take this phone call.
Yeah, sure.
Oops.
But yeah, so that was pretty awesome. Ren is such a cool and interesting character. I mean, if I do brag for ourselves for a minute here.
Thank you.
Yeah, does anyone else have any thoughts about just the pirates in general, or Ren and how she's leading the pirates? Anything like that?
I loved it. I honestly like well, for me, I think it's like great to finally see these narratives. I mean, it's like, for me, it reflects a lot of like Queen Nani and like all these like West Indian legends, and so to have like an actual fictional narrative of it, which is even better, because for me, a lot of times I think when it comes to like, and I can only speak for like just as a Black person or whatever, but when it comes to our narratives, it's oftentimes like, let's just recreate something that is really cool and like it makes you feel good, or it's going to talk about oppression. It's like always rooted in kind of like retelling a story. So I think there's something to take a part of our history that is often not seen, and to also add the fantastical to it. I think that actually is. I think that just all encompasses itself. The whole pirate thing, I always think, is just encompassed in the character of Ren. Like I feel like we wouldn't even be there if it wasn't for her, and I think that's kind of like, I don't know. I think it's just fun. It's just fun to kind of see this. For me, it's just refreshing. So, yeah.
I apologize, by the way, guys. I was telling Zach I had a pet emergency last night, and Kitty is the only thing more important than Once and Future Nerd. But that was the vet. She seems to be doing good so far. PSA: lilies are super poisonous to cats. So if you have a cat, don't keep lilies in the house, and nobody freaking tells you that. So
what?
Huh.
Yeah.
That's so random.
Yeah, like small amounts of pollen can be potentially fatal. So for all the dumb warning labels there are on everything, you think would be like, hey, this very common product will straight up kill your cat. Like,
I mean, we say it for dogs. I don't understand why people didn't say anything for cats. It's kind of like we all know chocolate kills dogs and stuff, you know?
Yeah, right. So she seems to be.
Well, I'm glad she's on the mend. Yeah.
Glad she's doing okay.
It's a couple day thing to just like make sure her kidneys are still working well, but the markers so far are positive. So everybody send some good vibes to Perthernax, and
Perthernax is such a good cat name.
Yeah, it is, if I don't say so myself. All right, sorry to derail the stream.
No worries. So just to continue, as a quick aside, but just to brag more about ourselves, Shannon, you're now in Luke Cage also, so that's pretty awesome. Congratulations about that.
Yeah. That was so trippy to see you go.
Have you watched it?
Yeah, I was binge watching it last night, like, so like for me it was mad trippy, like one, like, all right, whatever. Like it was like it's a Saturday night for one, so I was having a lot of fun. But also just like watching that, and then like I didn't see the Facebook post until like way later that night or whatever. I think that night or this morning. So I didn't even know. I was like, is that actually? That's not. It's not. That is Shannon. Like I was kind of having a moment where like, should I like send you a message? And by the time like tomorrow, or just today came around, I was like, all right, it was you. But
you're the third person who told me. They were like, oh, I was watching, and I went, wait a second.
Yes, yeah. It's yeah. I'm not even gonna do spoilers, but that was dope. Well,
actually, fun story. So I'll tell Christian a lot. Like when I'm out and about and it comes up, I tell people that I'm a part of this, that I write and I voice act for this great podcast called The Once and Future Nerd. And I remember one of the very first times I told you, Christian, that I was on set talking to a director. We were between shots. He was chatting me up and he asked me, oh, so what are you doing now? And I plugged The Once and Future Nerd. So on set for Luke Cage. Of course, I couldn't tell you where I was at the time.
Yeah.
Because of
That's crazy.
But
That's crazy.
So fun fact. of the two
Everybody
things converging.
go on.
Not to mention both characters have Jamaican accents.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like my fifth character where I have a Jamaican accent.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have-
Like
I'm
just
gonna
shout
have
outs to
catch
like
up
that
on
whole, and I
2
love
seasons.
the what you call it, the stylers. So it's just like I was like, yay! Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
That was cool.
Nice. So that's
Sorry, Christian, you were saying something.
Oh, I was saying I was saying I love the stylers. And I like the fact that it was just like I'm not gonna give it away. I feel like I'm gonna give spoilers.
That's right. Yes. No,
Yeah, it's
Thank
hard.
God, right?
Yeah, yo. That's dope. That's so dope, though. Oh, sorry.
no, it's all good.
I forgot where the conversation went now.
Super proud of that.
Check out season 2 of Luke Cage.
Yes.
I'm in episode 11.
Yes.
Hell
Luke
yeah.
Cage season 2, and at the end of the Once and Future Nerd chapter, our group parted ways with Ren, but she will be back at some point. This is a guarantee.
Dopeness.
So, in
So
addition,
can I just say one more thing before we move on, just to kind of
Yeah, go for
piggyback on what Paul was saying? It really meant a lot to me to be a part. I mean, I know that there isn't a direct parallel between sort of the orc sort of population and sort of people of color and other marginalized groups in sort of the human realm.
Mhm.
But I really appreciate that you decided to address this really important sort of what I eventually ended up calling intersectional moment, where it's somewhat of an exploration of intersectional feminism and the dynamics between in the real world, for instance, white women and women of color, and being able to feel that a little bit. Just having that kind of commitment to having a conversation like that is really important, and I'm really grateful to have been a part of it. So thank you.
that was the argument or discussion between Ren and Regan, right?
Yeah.
Where, Regan was like, "Come on, just help me out," basically, and Ren was kind of like, "I have to, look out for my own needs," essentially, right?
Mhm.
And also like, where were you before?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so that was a real interesting discussion that I'm glad that we were able to have it. I'm glad you were able to, help write and create it.
Yeah, totally.
And then speaking of interesting discussions that are maybe not always put out there, we actually got a few comments and questions this week about Billy in this chapter. So Billy, he's often, kind of there as a comedic outlet. He's kind of bumbling around. But in this chapter, Billy thought that he was the cause of getting them caught by pirates, and he was really beating himself over that. And then Nelson kind of accidentally informed him that he didn't even cause that. He kind of did nothing, which made Billy feel even worse, basically, and that led to some real introspection going on. So we got one comment from Mimbulus Tonia 95. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Sorry, Nimbulus.
Yeah. Mimbulus said, "I really dig Billy's turmoil of unlearning years of toxic masculinity, and I really look forward to seeing more as we move forward." And also, Rob Kebab on Twitter, our friend, he's the Golden Glove on Nerds on a Roll podcast. Rob says, "On the ship, when Billy gave the captain the pocket knife, what was going through his head there, and could this have lasting implications moving forward? His struggle with purpose and need is one we all have. Was that his way of working to be needed?" So I think those two questions together are sort of, moving forward, Billy's struggle, and kind of more serious one than we normally give him.
What's the can you refresh me about the pocket knife scene?
Oh, right. So Billy had this pocket knife that his dad had given him, and it was like engraved with his name, and it was his cherished possession. But his dad was kind of, an asshole, a terrible person, basically. And at the end of the chapter, when the pirates left, like the merchant ship who our team had just kind of hired to carry them, the pirates had tied up the merchant captain so he wouldn't chase them, and Billy left the pirate captain his pocket knife so that the captain could free himself and save his people. So it was on the one hand almost more empathy than Billy normally shows, that he cared if the pirate or if the merchant could escape safely. but it also was a bit of a big deal for him that he was giving up his dad's knife to do that, to make that gesture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I read it, as not necessarily a conscious like this is how I can be needed, just as like some empathy coming through from Billy's part.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I mean I like it's like part of me likes the approach, but then yeah, I guess like logically it works the other way. But I also I wonder, is there there is some of a journey, and maybe not necessarily in that moment, but like overall that Billy's taking that's like away from kind of like the selfish type of toxic masculinity. And I wonder, like, are there any moments that are like where he has like that you guys remember like happening in that chapter, or in the C chapter? It kind of makes you look back and wonder, like, all right, what else is he doing that may indicate that? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, two things. One, something I hadn't thought about until just now was that the leaving the knife behind, and maybe this was the intention, is also kind of symbolic if we're talking about him kind of shedding this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's giving up that piece of his dad that he's
Exactly.
carrying around.
He shed a bit of that skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that conversation between him and Brennan, right? Between him and your character, Nelson.
Yeah.
Doesn't he talk to Brennan as well? Brennan. That whole those two conversations.
Yeah, I
The
think
one with the
he talks to Nelson first.
Right.
And Paul, that's where you or Nelson sort of like gives him the real talk.
Kind of spill beans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, Brennan is kind of high and stumbles over, and then they have a little bit more of a real talk.
Yeah. Or then Brennan gets realer than Billy is willing to get at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that moment. Like, I think I hear my name being called or something.
So, Paul, do you want to speak a little bit on like that moment between Nelson and Billy?
I'm trying to think of like. I have the worst memory in the world. Give me a second.
We recorded this nearly a year ago at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is yeah.
But I also feel like the worst in the world for not remembering off the top of my head. I feel so guilty. Wait, this is the one where he's like, is this the steering conversation, or is this the one where like?
Yeah, the steering conversation.
The steering, yeah.
But all I remember is when he was like, oh, okay, and then that's it. But I can't remember like if there's anything else that went past that. I feel like it was just kind of like him just like being like, I failed at failure, and or failed at failing. That I remember that being the biggest thing or whatever. And I mean, you pity him, and I wonder where's he go past that after that moment where he kind of like says that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
What happens like after that? Do I ever say anything else to comfort?
Yeah, you talk about how like Jen kind of like needs Billy to keep her grounded when she starts doing the magic, and kind of like she kind of loses herself in the magic a little bit. That Billy is the only person who can keep her almost physically present. So you sort of you give him that pep talk. You're like, look, you're good at this. You're not a failure. You're good at this thing, and it's a really important thing. It's sort of like that.
And try to make him, feel, proud, or at least not ashamed of like a support role of being there to support a woman.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that right there is a good aspect that touches on a lot. I mean, that also is. No, you're going against like traditional households and blah blah, like the whole quote unquote traditional, right? Mm-hmm. But like the idea of patriarchy and kind of attaching it that way, where it's like not just simply. I think a lot of times it goes around who's the breadwinner. Mm-hmm. It's like kind of like the current conversation of like, all right, is it okay? Yada yada, which obviously it is, right? But like, I think in terms of also going further and taking like the economics out of it or the microeconomics out of it and looking at actually like the roles and household roles, like can you be a supportive person as just like a cis hetero man? Like, can you do that and not be like, not have this type of toxic masculinity that also always pushes you to be kind of like a selfish, shitty person? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's real. That's real. Yeah, I wonder that. 'Cause I feel like he is making that journey, but I know. Let's just tossing these things out. These are things. I'm pulling up this script, by the way, so I can look over all these things.
Yeah, it's like
definitely
shedding that skin and then replacing it with something, right? It's like it's not just about tearing down, the wall, so to speak, of toxic masculinity, but then building a fence, building something that's porous and that is useful and that's just putting something in the place of it, which is a equality, a sense that roles are interchangeable and fluid.
I'd never heard that fence analogy before. I like that.
Yeah. And I think
it's like boundary speak,
Mm-hmm.
self-help realm stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
boundaries. Sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I was gonna say there's a book called Beyond Boundaries, which is great, but whatever.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
Nice. Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think that Mimbulus, who left the comment, actually got it right when they said that he's trying to unlearn the years and years of toxic masculinity, because
Absolutely.
it's definitely a process for him. He's not there yet, and it's a tough process for him, but I think he's really trying to unlearn all of that.
Because if you look at his background too, where he's kind of like that football star trying to be going in through almost these more, he's known for football and it's more of a violent action, and now he needs to be there in much more of it's still through action, it's still through talking and just speaking, but he's been taking all these strides throughout this entire series to get to this point of he's been trying to fight. He's been trying to fight his way into being a vital member, and to now need to talk he's just finally getting there and finally learning to change that gear, but the gears are grinding as he's going, and it's a hard thing when your whole life is that and you're young. Because another thing that I keep trying to remember is that these guys are like pretty young kids.
Yeah.
It's like, we're putting a lot of stuff on them when we threw them into a fantasy. It's like it's a Portal fantasy. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something though that like I think it's something that a lot of people go through when they like graduate and when they kind of get away from the hometown. And Billy has had these real moments where he's like, hey, I know I'm gonna be like, I'm the high school jock, and then I'm not gonna, my trail of doing that is gonna run out, and then what am I? And he's had those real moments, and he's kind of thought about them, but he hasn't seen it in action. And I think that's kind of what is coming to head for him too in these moments. Where he has to kind of face that reality in this fantastical world. But yeah.
But
and to piggyback on that, you used the football. You mentioned football. It's like he's having to learn to use, instead of a physical muscle, he's having to learn to use his brain more. Not that football players don't use their brain, but he's exercising another and strengthening other muscles that he doesn't use as readily. His heart, his mind, his spirit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the witch call too, though. There's also this aspect of, to me, it seems almost like this thing of we're taking someone who feels like, how do I do it? I guess the thing that attracts me about Billy's character is that he's self-aware. And I think a lot of times people that are capable or do like very toxic things or toxic masculine things or patriarchal or kind of like exist in that type of mindset, they can sometimes be self-aware. I think that is something that isn't oftentimes addressed. It's not like they know that something's up, or that, oh, you know what, I know I'm peaking early, and like, what are you gonna do if you know that? You oftentimes give up. You're like, oh, well, there's no other choice. I think kind of him pushing himself and doing the work to try to like make himself into something that can last longer than just the high school years, the glory days of high school. That's a challenge and a story you don't really see a lot. You kind of see like, dumb jock, doesn't realize he's a dumb jock, doesn't realize he's going to peak. And it's like, well, no, they oftentimes do. And they're like, I don't know what else I'm going to do. This is all I got. So I think that type of, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's like, it's not really like meta. It's just like a real character. Do you know what I mean? Like this is how you get it, you know?
I mean, the struggle is sort of happening in real time. We catch him on the journey. I don't know that it's like his self-awareness is awakening, and he's kind of going through that process, and we're watching it and how uncomfortable it is, and how he's kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's an also really interesting piece of it. That it's not finished. It's not easy. That it's not like, oh, I've had an awakening in a 5-minute conversation. That it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It often takes time for people to break out of, like you said, to break out of these sort of tropes. Damaging tropes both to ourselves and to society. But it's great to watch him go on that journey.
In kind of somewhat in parallel to Brennan's journey.
Right.
Now I can see it's real.
And it also
and then you have the age spectrum, right? You have an intergenerational piece of it. You've got a young boy, not a young boy, but an adolescent, and a geriatric warrior.
Geriatric warrior. That's good. Okay.
And seeing his limitations as well, and having him go, okay, well, how can I be useful when I'm puking my guts out,
right?
On this ship, and not really useful, with my might anymore at this moment.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Right. His body kind of failed him in that moment.
Yeah.
So what else do I have? Before we move on to the next thing, I just want to say, chat. Kat is saying, pulling up the script when you're having a discussion about this podcast is the most relatable thing in the world. In the fan Discord, there's a pinned spelling message.
That's actually pretty excellent.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry for the spelling choices that we made.
Yeah.
Speaking of spelling choices and similar that we made, this is actually a nice segue to our next topic, if people don't mind.
Yes.
We can't discuss this chapter without the name of the chapter. I've been working on the Whale Road, and when we came up with it, Greg said he would quit if we stuck with his name.
Greg wanted it, right?
No, Greg did not want it.
Oh, Greg was anti. Okay.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Greg said he
I'm
would
here
quit if
to
we used
announce my retirement. I've had a wonderful time at this podcast and working on everything with it, but I think with this, it's the appropriate time to take a step back and focus on myself. And,
with the press conference
for anyone
glasses.
listening on audio,
remove myself from some of these pun-filled discussions and topics. It's just sometimes it brings me to a dark place, and I, just start seeing red, and so
those glasses are excellent.
Yeah,
Can I just say though, I didn't.
Press conference glasses.
I know that the person who sent in the question mentioned Beowulf. I don't know the reference, but when Beowulf was brought in, I was like, oh, okay, I'm cool with that. Now you got to explain it to me, but I was like, oh, okay, there you go.
Right. So that's what
so
this
I'll let
next
Christian
segment is.
explain it, because Christian's kind of the one who probably has thoughts. So the question from Lona Ravenclaw on Tumblr, I think, is there any significance to the fact that Whale Road comes from Beowulf? I know that Beowulf is one of the earliest uses of the etymological ancestor to the word orc. Not to mention that one of the biggest themes of the poem has to do with what makes a good ruler. Does this mean anything? So, Christian, go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go as quick as I can and then cut me off before I go too long, because I'll talk about this for too long. So, we weren't directly drawing from Beowulf thematically, other than that Beowulf was a huge influence on Tolkien, and of course we're drawing on a lot of Tolkien. Whale Road doesn't necessarily come from Beowulf. It is a figure of speech in Germanic poetry called a kenning, and the thing with kennings is, right, so like bits of writing that are meant to be memorized, songs and poems and things like that, you usually need some sort of like tool to help you memorize them, which is why most of our songs rhyme. But for a lot of older languages, including Anglo-Saxon, everything conjugates and declines, which means that the ending of the words tells you what part of speech it is. So if you start to futz with the endings of words, the sentences quickly become incoherent. So it's very, very difficult to rhyme in those languages. So instead, most of the songs and poems in those languages alliterate. So like the consonants at the beginning of the word match instead of the vowels at the end of the word. And so oftentimes then in those kind of poems, you know, let's say I need to say ocean, but they're like the word, in order to fit the meter and the pattern, I need a word that starts with like an H sound to fit the alliteration pattern. I'll make up this kind of convoluted like roundabout way of saying ocean that uses, so the line in Beowulf is, I think, Offerhonrada Hurenskolden Gomben Gud, like so that those H sounds needed to match. So, and the Hronrada is whale road, and there's lots of other similar things in Old Norse poetry and Old English poetry.
Good grief.
Like whale road, swan road. You know, there's probably like
Fish Alley,
yeah, something
like that. Fish Street, it's fine.
Yeah, so that's
Street.
kenning, and if you read up the Wikipedia page on kennings, you'll learn more about them. Modern German has a lot of things that are similar to kennings because German decided to just stop adding words in like 1750, and so you get delightful sentence constructions in German, like how a motorcycle literally translates to fire chair. And yeah, so that's kennings, and that's why we did it, and I thought it was funny, and it made Ian laugh, and I'm done now.
Well, that was super interesting. You're a big nerd.
Yep.
Take away from the fact that it was super interesting.
That was really good.
I would just like to say, I did, after word got out about the title of it and about the internal dispute about it, that my dad messaged me and thanked me for objecting heavily. And this is my dad, who is a big advocate for dad jokes and dad puns. So I'm just saying, that's all.
Your objection is noted. Please don't quit. We like you.
Noted and
I will take it up in the next contract review.
yeah.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining your dad is kind of like a tear falls from his eyes, like, you did good. You stood up for what was right. You never do that. It's amazing. Oh, perfect.
That's pretty funny.
Great.
One of those things.
Okay, so that's that about the title. Unless anyone else has a last thought about the Whale Road. The next thing we wanted to talk about was the song Maddy Groves from this episode. So it's a pretty interesting song. Christian, I don't know if you want to talk about how it sort of came together that we got the song in there, and then we could talk a little bit about the song and the plot, because it really was a bit of a moment for Arlene there.
Yeah.
So
This is a good time to say Happy Pride.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Happy
True that,
Pride.
true that.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
That was not
Wait,
necessarily.
happy.
Go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to say Happy Pride? I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. I heard Happy Pride. I was like, and two people said it. I was like, I think I should say Happy Pride. Should I, like, we were all saying it, or did I'm just throwing things?
No,
Happy
you're
Pride.
good.
All right, cool. Just
I
making
was
sure.
just saying that we weren't specifically planning for this song to come out right at this time of year, but it seems to have worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Christian, do you want to talk about the sort of the technical aspect of this song, and then we can discuss even more?
Yeah, it's because it was kind of a bonkers way to record a song, but it was like so invigorating to do it. My wife Jess is on. Sorry, my wife is. She's on a musical improv team, and so I've seen them perform, and I kind of knew that they had the ability to just come up with a pretty kick-ass song on the spot. And I loved the idea of kind of having that live, raw, raucous energy in the studio in a show that is otherwise pretty scripted. So we had them come in. They recorded a bunch of other songs that they just completely made up on the spot. There's a couple that that we didn't put in the episode, but they're all really good. The one that you hear when spoilers when Bryce is dying, they made that up right there. They had never, that was their first take ever doing that song. The dirty limericks that they do, we knew they were gonna sing dirty limericks, but we didn't have words or a melody or anything like that. So that was all there on the spot. The outtakes for this that we're going to play at the end of this when we do it on the podcast feed are going to be filthy even by the standards of this show because of a song that they did that did not make it into the episode. But yeah, for Maddy Groves, we had the lyrics, and we had basically, I forget how long we had with the singers and with Anya in the studio at the same time, but it was not terribly long. It was probably like an hour and a half. And so they figured out, they had, a melody that they liked, and it worked with their voices and with the harmonies and with the lyrics. And so they taught that song to Anya on the day. We did a rehearsal of it, like one rehearsal take, and then we recorded it, I think, twice with maybe a couple pickups, and it was recorded all live. Anya had one mic, and the singers were all together in like one stereo array. Shout out to Jared Paul, who's a brilliant recording engineer, recorded all of Wolf 359. We're really, really glad to have Jared on our team because he knocked that out of the park. So that was all recorded, basically live, 2.5 takes maybe that we spliced together in the episode, and then we overdubbed the stomps and claps. That was the only overdub we did, and we did the stomps by literally laying a 2x4 on top of a forklift pallet and sticking a mic in it and just stomping the crap out of it. So we did all that, and I'm so happy with how that song came out. And Anya is a trooper for like, that was, she's used to doing pretty scripted stuff, so that was kind of outside of her comfort zone. But I think but she was like, we told her what we were going to do ahead of time, and kind of had the agreement of like, no, it's a little good to like, because Arlene is outside of her comfort zone in that moment. So Anya and I both agreed that
use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was definitely in plot outside of Arlene's comfort zone too. Like, she's still sort of just getting used to the singing thing, like singing publicly in general, because I imagine she was pretty sheltered when she was living in the castle. And then, she's sort of like, she's kind of making up the words on the spot in the fiction, and B, it's kind of her first time really like stepping out and speaking against her brother. So I thought that's kind of cool how the sort of production aspects line up with the plot aspects.
And she had kind of bombed the first time, so there was that pressure. There was that like performance anxiety to like knock it out the park the second time. By the way, I mean, I thought the whole season, I keep saying season, please, chapter. Sorry, Christian.
No,
the whole chapter I thought was great, but that episode sonically, it blew me away. So congratulations, my God, it was so cool.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and shout out to Ollie Morris too, who did all the post mixing on that episode. I agree that it sounded great.
Yeah, everyone who worked on that and all the post production, everything, all the recording is incredible. What everyone managed to do, and I wasn't involved in any of the post stuff, so I could compliment it and not be bragging about myself. So really, everyone who did it, great job.
Great job.
And one neat thing about, I don't neat isn't the right word. I'm sorry for the wrong word choice, but with how the timing worked out, we released the episode with the song in it, and there was immediately an outcrying from the audience to have a place to download that song themselves. And so we immediately cranked out a version to put onto our Bandcamp page, but unfortunately there's some pretty heinous things going on in this country right now, so we decided to take the opportunity that all of the sales of this song we would donate to charity, and in
For the first week, just
for the first week, yes, sorry, and incredibly for us, for our size of podcast, we sold $60 worth of song in just 1 week, which by our numbers is incredible. So thank you everyone for supporting, hopefully the good cause instead of us, or both, but we will be donating that money to Races. We had initially said a different podcast a different charity, and I know that some of us had individually donated to that charity, but after seeing how things have played out, we think that Races will be a good source. I don't know, Christian, if you want to talk about that a bit.
Yeah, it was just, when we at first put out the episode, we kind of first put out the track, we listed one group of charities that was kind of doing like immediate triage in a way, and then as time went on and it started to become clearer who was going to be able to do the most immediate work on the ground, it seemed like Racist was a better choice. It's the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services, and you can find more about them at Races RAICES Texas.org. So that's where the $60 is going to be going. And thank you to everybody who bought the song and helped us try to do some good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that sort of leads us into another question that we got that's a little different from what we normally discuss. It's not directly related to this chapter of the podcast at all, but it's kind of, I guess, related to current events. So this is going to get a little serious for a bit. We've received a question from Ella Darling on Twitter. The question read, I only just finished book 1 and I'm listening to a statement regarding recent events. How did you make the decision to create that message? What was the process? So just to fill in or remind everyone what that statement was and what Ella is talking about, we released a statement. I looked it up, November 20th, 2016, shortly after the U.S. presidential election. And we were, I hope, the only organization in history to quote Anne Frank and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in the same sentence, which I personally was pretty proud of. But
Goals.
in all seriousness, this was basically a message that we put out asking our audience to treat each other well, essentially. We decried and condemned hatred of all forms and asked our audience to basically combat hatred with love and community and helpfulness. So I just wanted to discuss this for a few minutes because when we got this question, I was thinking about it a lot, and the world has kind of changed even in the just year and a half since 2016. So I wanted to talk for a few minutes about what was going through my mind then, and maybe Christian wants to talk about what was going through his mind then, and then we can sort of open it up to discuss, anything, how those sentiments have aged or how people view that now, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess because I'm moderating, I'll decide to go first. So when that statement, or when at that time in late 2016, and it wasn't just the outcome of the election. That was sort of like the big visible point, but all through late 2016, there seemed to be an amplification or a crescendo of a lot of hateful and hurtful rhetoric, certainly surrounding the election, but also just out in the world, and that sort of culminated in the outcome of that election. And we knew, through social media and just real world interactions that many people were hurting and they were scared and they were angry at that point. And the first thing that was most important to us was that we didn't want to be adding more anger or fear into the world. We didn't want to be fear mongering or anything. We thought that to those members of our audience who were truly fearful, that what they needed most at that moment was some message of support and of hope. So that was our first and primary goal. And sorry.
No.
Right. So that was the first goal that we were focusing on. And then the second thing, which was important to me at the time, and honestly now feels a little bit naive, but at the time it was important to me that we try our best not to alienate anyone with this statement. I always thought that from when we started this show, we obviously have a point of view that we're trying to communicate. We have, a message we're trying to share, but I never wanted to share that message in a way that is alienating to someone who may not disagree. And part of that is tactical in the sense that, if you alienate everyone who disagrees with you, you'll never be able to reach them with your message. But part of that is I think it's just the right thing to do. So when we crafted that message, we weren't, we tried not to directly mention the election or any party in the election. We were just saying hate is bad, love is good. And that was sort of our idea moving forward. And I've rambled on enough that someone else wants to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just talk really briefly, and then I want to hear what everybody else thinks before I circle back. But for me, it was kind of like, what Zach was saying is how do you have a big tent so that people can learn and grow without just like letting bullies force out the most vulnerable members of a community. And so that message for me was kind of just establishing like, hey, here's a baseline of what we're going to require in terms of treatment, of just like basic empathy and affording human dignity, and that seemed, that assumption kind of seemed in question for me in public more than it had been visibly to me in my lifetime before that. So that was kind of just us saying, okay, here's, if you want to be, we're going to keep this tent as big as we can, but here's what you have to adhere to. Here's the level of empathy you need to show to everybody else if you want to stay in that tent. And it's strange because we, maybe not strange in hindsight, but we only got like one real bit of hate mail over it, and not even hate mail, just someone saying, I was listening to the show to like avoid politics, and then this comes along, and we were super careful in the way we worded that statement to not, we didn't say like fuck Trump and fuck everyone who voted for Trump, and if you're a Republican, unfollow me. And like a lot of our peers at the time were doing that, and I totally get where that's coming from. And if you follow my personal Twitter, it's not that far from that. But we were very careful in terms of framing it just in terms of accountability and boundaries, and that someone was like, oh, now you're like shitting on my politics. And it was kind of like, dude, if you're like, if empathy and human rights feel, antagonistic to your politics, think about your politics. That's the line we're going to draw,
Mm-hmm.
But and I have more to say, but I think it's really important to hear what everybody else is feeling about that message.
I mean, I'll say something. I feel like for me, I'm very much, I wouldn't say I'm like far left or just like very like radical or anything like that, but for me, it's less about like my politics and being radical and more about like just being fed up. You know what I mean? So like for me, it's like originally I would always like parse my words and be like, oh, maybe this and that, and maybe it's, and what I found is that in the middle of that, there's a certain type of vulnerability you have to take that no one's going to take advantage of that and take it out of context and then start some other false flag or some other like, not false flags, a false straw man argument. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the whole idea of like when people said like diversity, right? We wanted to use the word like diversity, and all of a sudden it became, well, what about diversity of thought? And then everyone else, like women, minorities, and LGBT folks, like got left behind because a lot of conservatives tried to force this idea that you like diversity, right? Well, then that means that you like this, and it's like that's not. We were just trying to make it so it's inclusive, and so for me, like I was happy to participate because it brought back a certain type of trust you have to have with the person who's watching or listening to your message, that they're going to understand that you're trying to be inclusive of them, that you're, you may not have the exact same thing, but they know where you're coming from, and that you're trying to give out an olive branch. It's been a while since I've seen anyone that does that, I guess, on our level, that is like earnest about these things. You know what I mean? So it's tough.
And like that's another boundary that I think we set. It's like you got to engage in good faith and the basic humanity of other people in the conversation or the community can't be up for debate. Once that's up for debate, you in some ways you've already lost the argument.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, as you said, you got that one response, and I don't want to spend too much time on that as an outlier. But, I kind of feel like if somebody responds that way to the podcast, have they not been listening? You know what I mean? One of the things and I told you this, Christian, and I think I've said it in our Q&As before, that one of the things that made me want to accept the invitation to be involved was because it was glaring from within the first few episodes or the first season or whatever, that chapter or whatever, it was pretty clear what the point of view was.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit ironic to me that someone would say, oh, now you want to shit on my politics. But at the same time, that kind of pinpoint the way that there are some people for whom, I say this all the time, for me, the personal is political. There's no separation for me.
Yeah.
And so, but there are some people who have that privilege, so for someone.
Thank you for saying that.
Someone to listen to a message like that and, to have already missed the point that the show does, it is political in the sense that it is making a decision to include and center voices that have typically not been centered and included in this genre or in this way or to this extent, So there's that piece of it. The other thing I will say, I literally just listened to it last night. And when Zach sent us around the questions and sort of gave us a heads up about what to expect, I wasn't sure what the statement would be like. And I wondered whether it would be more in that vein of fuck Trump or sort of in a different, take a different take. And I do appreciate what that your focus was on, like you said, sort of laying the groundwork, like a message of encouragement, a message of support, and sort of having that be the focus. I do think it's a tricky thing to not alienate people, and I do think that's an important thing to do, because the fact is, there are people out there who can be influenced in a positive way and whose minds and perspectives can be broadened, and you don't necessarily want to shut them out. Right. At the same time, like you were saying, you do want to make it clear that, look, this is a space that you're coming into where you might not be used to being the person who is the focus of it, and that if you are going to be antagonistic to the people whose voices are being centered in a way that they haven't been before, then this probably isn't for you.
Right.
So I mean, I hope that makes sense. It felt a little roundabout, but so the bottom line is that I felt like it was a really positive and a way to be diplomatic, but also effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying so.
Can I touch on this? That is like, and thank you for talking about this, Shannon, because like for me personally, like I get annoyed when someone says that it's politics, and like not to crap on whoever made the post. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, the argument being made is that these laws and ideologies that influence our laws by politicians and elected officials that we put in place, that they don't somehow affect our livelihood and our personal lives. I think that's, like you said, it's a privileged position. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, like, if you one, you didn't mention anything about politics, but two, at the end of the day, like if you think that's politics to talk about certain issues or whatever, then you're not thinking about it as much. You might not see how it influences you, if that makes any sense. I think a lot of times, like, it's just human nature that if it affects you, then you're gonna be more concerned. And I think that's I mean, it's just privilege. I don't know. I think it's just like a privileged answer, but a lot of times it just indicates that we, somehow it does affect us. It always affects us, but we might not know how it does.
Right.
It makes
I
any
mean,
sense.
I think politics kind of hides itself from the powerful. Like that's part of the function.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
And it kind of disguises itself as normal and default when basically
No, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
every single aspect of how a society is organized at some point was a political decision that people either did or didn't agree to go along with. Almost everything is political.
And honestly, in a way, I mean, aside from that person, lashing out and clearly not getting the message, in a way, that's almost the type of person who I would hope,
hears it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they haven't heard that before, but just by like hearing our story, maybe they can start thinking about things in a way that they didn't before. So that's sort of the reason why I didn't want to alienate anyone. If they could, if maybe that person can hear the story and even just think about it a little bit to themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. It's something I've been thinking about a lot, because you see all these like all these New York Times op-eds that like take the idea of like, oh, we should talk to this just absurd extreme where it's like, oh, if black trans women were just nicer to Nazis, then we wouldn't have and it's like, no.
Yeah.
But like I think, because, and let me be clear about how I say this, because in talking about like keeping the tent big and trying to change minds, I don't blame anyone for deciding that they're not going to engage in a conversation. Like some conversations are unsafe for some people. Some conversations will just like, you're not obligated to make yourself unsafe. You're not obligated to just, tank your mental health. You're not obligated to sink all of your time into trying to convince people who are arguing in bad faith, which happens a lot. But I think that, for me, it's like one dimension of privilege is that conversations that would be dangerous or damaging for other people are merely uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
So I try to have, like, I think that's a reasonable standard, is like try to have the conversation that is merely uncomfortable for you, that would be dangerous or triggering or something for somebody else. So that's kind of where I come from. So it's like, your uncle who kind of could maybe be swayed by you but isn't quite there yet, like that's a good conversation to have. Pretending that Nazis are arguing in good faith is not a worthwhile conversation to have. And that was kind of, we did another kind of statement like this right after Charlottesville, and that was kind of what we said.
Real.
Yeah. I weirdly think that this can kind of almost fold into part of our discussion with Billy, and that it's kind of trying to open people in what you're talking about, having a bigger tent and having it be more inclusive, where we're trying to open the eyes to some people about what's going on and what people go through and what their voices are, and like, hey, look, there are other human beings over here that are going through XYZ that you have no idea about. And I know that I have been exposed to a lot of it, and that I'm trying to adjust my way of actions and my way of thinking. And I know that right after the election, the day after the election, I woke up with just a very sense of fear for a lot of people I knew. All of a sudden, just came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, I was afraid for a significant amount of my friends, which was not something that I was used to, but it was a very real thing that I was feeling. And then being able to participate in this statement, even by, I'm not really good at words and saying them, despite being on multiple podcasts. I am bad at structuring my words well in what feels like they can be more meaningful and impactful for both myself and the people around me. And so to be able to participate in something that is more inclusive and hopefully is eye-opening, but also very clearly defines where we as a group kind of stand on things, was enormously powerful and helpful for me personally. So thank you guys. And it helped kind of open the door of like, you know, it's going to be okay for me to approach people about XYZ topic. Like, I'm not going to just shove my foot in my mouth by taking a stand on certain things if I can go about it in certain ways. So, and that kind of narrative has obviously evolved over the past months since then. But I think it, at least for me, it helped kind of push towards being able to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I just want to add, Alyssa in the live chat mentioned how fiction is how I developed a lot of my empathy, and I think that's really true. Thank you, Alyssa, for sharing and chatting, but I think that's part of the big power of fiction, and that's sort of what, you know, when we set out to the show, like we know that fiction is very powerful. Sometimes it's an underestimated powerful force, I think.
Yeah. I think it was probably, I forget exactly, but it was probably Bruce Springsteen said that, fiction can be kind of a roadmap to empathy. You know, you take fiction as a way to like put you inside of somebody else's journey, you know, and it can be very effective for that.
Mm-hmm. As an aside, I am wearing a Bruce Springsteen shirt right now.
Yeah, I was thinking, I saw like...
Have either of you seen the Broadway show? Are you going to see it?
I don't have that.
seen it
You're a
yet.
big fan.
I would like
There's
to.
a Broadway show?
Yeah, he has a one-man show on Broadway, but I don't have that much.
Oh.
I thought they did a like jukebox musical with all Springsteen
it's
shows.
terrible.
No,
It's
he's
terrible.
there. I
And
mean,
apparently, the ticket is a hot ticket. But Kristen, you said you're not going?
I can't afford that. Like, whenever he's in town, I go to the concerts because the concerts are actually usually pretty affordable for an artist of his size, but the Broadway show is out of control. And it's like, yeah, it's just him. It's just him with like a guitar and a piano.
Fresh tickets?
Yeah, that could. Yeah.
The funny part about that is there was an old SNL skit called Bruce Springsteen Just the Stories, which was you know, they had who was it? It was someone famous pretending to be Bruce Springsteen. And
it was Ben Stiller.
It was Ben Stiller, and the whole SNL skit was like a DVD box set of just Bruce Springsteen's stories in between his songs and his concerts. And now, from what I've heard, that's basically what his Broadway show is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Tony performance was basically him sitting and talking, and I was very confused.
Well, somebody was asking me at work, like, so I thought the show was a concert. I was like, well, it's not really a concert because he tells a lot of stories before he does the songs. And I was like, okay, so it actually is like a concert. Like Patty
It's a
comes
spoken
out,
word concert.
like, yeah,
There you go.
It actually is
Bruce
like a concert.
Springsteen style, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
minutes.
sorry for that.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry for that diversion from the serious
Needed to
topic.
bring it back light a little bit.
Yeah. And I don't want to cut anyone off if anyone else has something they want to add to this discussion.
Yeah.
But if everyone has said their piece, thank you to the audience for allowing us this little bit of retrospection and introspection.
Thanks, Ella, for the question.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ella.
I know you're a little behind on the show, so we'll try to tag this area so you don't get everything else spoiled for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will try to do that.
That's not.
Sorry,
fake.
can I just make one little tiny? I just want to say one little other tiny thing, and just sort of plug and sort of big up the show in the sense of one of the other pieces that's important in diversity and inclusion is that the people at the table are not just the people performing and in front of the, you know, not the camera, but in front of them, right? So I really appreciate that there's an effort to have the writing team also be diverse and have people like myself
Yeah.
to tell stories that relate to our experiences, because it really makes a difference when the person telling the story is reflected in the story itself. So
Mhm.
props for that.
Yeah, I second that. Props.
And thank
Well,
you guys for
Yeah.
joining us, and like, a random podcast is kind of out on a limb for you guys to go and spend your time on. So thank you for, sharing your time and your experiences with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. I thought you were talking to the audience. You're
Oh
welcome.
no,
Oh,
I was
lies.
talking
Whoops.
to you.
Oh, you were? Okay, cool. I thought I misinterpreted.
No.
I was like, oh no.
No, I was talking to
you. All right, cool. Yay. Yeah. Huzzah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You kind of be bullshit otherwise. You know?
Yeah. Now to talk to the audience, Lila in chat wants us to say their name, so hi Lila.
Did we say that right?
Oh, Lila?
Yes, in chat.
La la la. La 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 la. That's all I got.
Nice. Well done.
Is that good?
Hey, person.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's good. Yeah, so to lighten up the discussion a little bit, we got a question from Pub Loco on Tumblr saying, in book 1, we saw 3 members of the party affected by a poison that made them hallucinate, confront their inner demons. My question is, what would other members of the party see if they were put in this situation? And do you think they would be able to overcome it like the kids did? So we can talk about the other party members if they were having these kind of terrifying hallucinations. But we also got a comment in chat earlier from Lona Ravenclaw about Hi Brennan, so we could also talk about, other drugs and what the rest of the party would be like on various substances.
That's actually that's really that's deep. Because the elf, which I just call it elf weed, but I don't think it even works the same way as weed. But the elf weed or whatever, that's
Cannabrute.
Wait, what's it called?
Cannabrute.
Cannaroot. Cannabaroot.
Canib.
Yeah.
Cannab root. Nice. Oh, nice. Okay, he typed it to me. It says cannabrute. Yeah, I see. Like cannabis. Okay, so it is clear. All right. Yeah. Because I was thinking all right, cool. How would Brennan be on a weed or cannabrute, as we would call it?
He gets very introspective. That's what
right.
he does.
I wonder,
shout out to Garrett's performance in that. Garrett and Frank together, who recorded that separately, and were just great about okay, you need to be really serious so that Billy's reaction could yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it was well done. But yeah, Alyssa in the chat doesn't want to remember the feels from the hallucinations. They were pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just kind of real quick, and we can expand on this. It's Brennan would see his dad, and Regan would see her sister, and Nia would see her parents being disappointed in her, and Eloine would see his parents being disappointed in him. I think is the short and I think the idea that everybody has kind of all of our main cast is hurt. That's a big thing for the show to me, but I really wanted to focus in. The reason I chose to really focus in on the kids' trauma at that point was I think kind of at this point the lame way to do portal fantasy is to be oh, these kids, they think they have it so tough in their modern teenage American life, and now here's a world where things are actually tough. But kind of going back a little bit to the politics, a big point of the show is all of these kids have each of them has in their own way kind of been brutalized by life in modern America, and that was something I just sink my teeth into. So I'll shut up now and open it up to everybody else.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, go for it.
No, go for it. My sound went out a little bit.
Oh, I was going to say, to tag on to that, transporting to the fantasy world didn't fix those problems either. It's not
right.
And those problems, like you said, some stories are oh, now you can appreciate what you had in the real world. No, that's not what we're doing. you still have problems, you're just now somewhere else, and probably those people have problems too, and they're not easy problems to fix, to be honest. Like, just being somewhere else doesn't necessarily fix it, and it's like something that's worth, I guess, discussing and inspecting a bit.
Well, it's process, right? It's like it's showing, you showed the history, the background, and they're in this new world, and like you said, it doesn't fix anything, but we see them working all that stuff out as they live and deal with these issues that they have confronted in this new world. So that's a really great thing too. Again, it's like, it's the journey, not the destination, to sort of be cliche a little bit, but but that's what it is, and that's really compelling.
Well,
it's a wide experience.
I think that also like that makes me think about the it makes me like kind of realize that choice to be like, well, you know what, like your problems are still going to stay the same no matter what time reference is. It makes it harder for you to solve that as a writer, and so it's like it's harder writing basically. You can't, like, it's not an easy out. It's not like, well, you see, like it was so tough back then, so you might as well accept your lot in life. Right. It's like, well, no, like they still have the same thing, so that problem is a little bit more difficult than simply just making a plot reference or a plot change. Do you know what I mean? I think like that, it just makes for better writing to be like, well, you know what? No, that whole thing of like young people are all crazy today. Well, they were crazy back then, so what are you gonna do now? Like that type of thing, So I like it. I like it a lot. It makes it a lot. It just kind of makes me realize that also lends itself to making these characters so much more like real. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And for the second part of the question from Pabloco, would everyone else in the party be able to overcome their hallucinations as well as the kids did? I think that's kind of an interesting question, and the easy answer is sort of, when we write a story, we can make the protagonists overcome, But they're like, I don't know what not overcoming in a fiction would look like.
Well, I think it would be making the same mistakes, and I think, my instinct, and maybe people feel differently, but is that at the time when the kids had their hallucinations, I don't know if the rest of the party would have been able to get through their I think the kids had done, a ton of character movement in book 1, but the party was in many ways pretty static in terms of their character journeys, and now that there's been this major event that the kids understand better because of their experiences, now it's forcing the Yordic characters into their realizations. Brennan's got to do the racism that he learned, and Regan's got to learn how to be a team player, and Yolin's got to learn with the racism he all that stuff. So I think kind of the Yordic characters are doing most of their growth in book 2.
And I think we saw that with Regan. Like, she almost didn't overcome it at the start of book 2, when she really starts lashing out against Jen and Nia. Like, she really retreated into her shell and almost didn't pull through it. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, it also gets at, again, this idea of process. I mean, the kids haven't they haven't fixed everything, so the pushing through the hallucinations was like a breakthrough, but they still have more work to do, which is again very realistic. And just to sort of like piggyback on what Paul was saying about writing it in a sort of meta way, it's like, you're taught to show, don't tell, right? We want action. We want to, don't say, well, this such and such and such and such happened, but let us see it happen. And that's what is good about the writing in the series, is that we see the action, and the progress and the steps and the pitfalls and the fallbacks and the victories, and it's very realistic in that way.
And I think that's something good about doing something that's so long for. And believe me, like, not a day goes by that I don't ask myself, like, why didn't I write a smaller thing that wasn't going to take so long? But kind of a nice thing. And this is a thing that, I think is happening now that kind of cable TV is like really high quality writing too. now that a thing you can do in a really long form thing you can't do in a 2-hour movie is you can really, you know, sink your teeth into that process that you keep talking about, kind of like the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And like, you know, in a movie, it's like, you know, take like a romance movie. Basically, the couple has one big fight at the end of Act 2 that, you know, reveals each of their weaknesses, but then, you know, they solve it, and then the implication is that they're fine after that. And in reality, you know, the same fight probably repeats dozens of times over the course of a relationship as everybody slowly learns and hopefully makes, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good thing about long form writing is you can really show that in a more realistic way.
Mm-hmm. We've definitely got the long form part down. I could say that.
Yeah. We're drafting chapter 5. Sorry, everybody.
So it's been what, 6
Sweet.
years? I thought that was six, right?
Our first episode dropped September of 2013, and we were
Wow.
writing it for probably a year before
Okay.
that, maybe.
Wow.
When I think about it, my head starts-
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's big.
Some
Man.
might say that if it takes you 3 hours to run a mile, you're doing something wrong. But I go back and I look at the body of
This is a
work.
marathon, is it not? Was
Yeah,
that
it is.
Yeah.
from the
And I-
beginning?
Yeah, and I look back and I see how much the writing has grown and how complex and rich the episodes I think have
Yeah.
become relative to the where we started, and I think that's in large part because, you know, adding a writer's room and having you guys in, and also just, you know, becoming more confident in the medium. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so excellent question, Pabloco. Thank you for the question. The next question we had from Baker P on Reddit: is there any comment on whether or not Nelson will roll his 20-sided die, and by chance will it land on some random magical number?
I like this one.
Cause unforeseen boons or consequences? It's a good question. And it just reminds me. Oh, I wish I could remember. I saw a tweet recently about audio drama about how like physical, almost like props on the characters that you don't necessarily mention or reference every time. They're still there.
Yeah.
And like,
Was that ours?
Yeah, it was Ars
somebody had an
Paradoxica.
eye patch. Somebody had an eye patch and they just never told you.
yeah. That's what it was. It was Ars Paradoxica. Like, they had their show going for however many episodes and just never mentioned that one of the characters had an eye patch. So to remind our audience,
By the way, congrats on those guys for wrapping an incredible run.
definitely. So to the question, we did mention it in, I think, the first episode. Nelson wears the 20-sided die around his neck all the time.
Yeah.
And
and it's supposed to be a symbol, you know, of chaos in this world. And we never really fleshed out that subplot, to be perfectly honest with you.
I thought we were coming back to it. That's kind of what I assumed.
We'll come
Yeah.
back to it.
we will at some
Please
point.
do something with that. Please let it be like natural dye. That'd be amazing. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm just imagining like a nice little homage to Dungeons and Dragons, but just like how can you work it into real life? I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. That'd be great though. That'd be so nice.
I'm thinking, I know how we can use it, but it probably can't happen until like book 4.
Word.
Yeah, so at this pace, if it's been 5 years since we started and we're in book 2 now, book 4, 2026, something like that.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I'll see you when I'm 47.
Oh, perfect. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, so
I think.
I guess keep an eye out for that sometime in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
To be continued.
Chat is asking how he wears it. Like, is it in a vial or is there a hole drilled through it? I think I always pictured a hole drilled through it, but I guess that's not the die itself. It could be in a vial.
I think actually John drew it in a vial.
Oh,
I
really?
think. Yeah, I think that's right.
Shows
I
how
think
much
if you
I know.
If you look at the
Oh.
header.
Yes, I'm looking at the header picture now. John did draw it. John, our amazing artist, drew it in a vial. So I was wrong.
Sweet. What's
Alyssa-
like? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Alyssa in chat says, "How many subplots could a subplot plot if a subplot could subplot?" Excellent
Oh,
comment.
brilliant.
I appreciate that.
Good.
Three. Three.
3.
Easy.
Very good.
Mm.
I want to give a quick shout out to Alyssa in chat who said that that Jen really opened her eyes to the way that a quote unquote popular girl in a small town may have been feeling, and that makes me feel really good that we did that kind of roadmap to empathy thing that we were talking about. So thank you for saying so, Alyssa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing and commenting in the chat. Next question, the more of the silly ones. So this one I may need to let Greg take the lead on here. Pages of Kenna on Twitter asks a really important question. What is everybody's Pokemon Go team? Cast and characters, hypothetically.
All the entire 500 person cast of characters, is that what every minor?
This is Greek to me.
Yeah.
So, in the video game Pokemon Go, there are at the beginning, you can join one of 3 teams. Team Instinct, Team Valor, and Team Mystic.
Wow.
Seemingly the most important aspects of these teams are their colors, which is just red, blue, and yellow, because people are just attributing them to the original 3 Pokemon games, which were Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, and Pokemon Yellow. Pokemon Instinct, I mean, they all kind of, their names hint at what they are all about. Instinct is all about just like acting on instinct and like following your gut and being Team Valor is all about like teamwork and being true. They're almost like paladins in a way, kind of like, yes, we will follow the true way, but also like we are confident in ourselves and we want to fight for honor, kind of things.
So
and Team Mystic is mostly about think of kind of mages in a traditional sense, like wizards. Like, we're all about information and knowing the right path, and a search and following knowledge.
Okay.
And I believe Instinct is yellow, Valor is red, and Mystic is blue.
That is helpful. Thank you.
So
I played original Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I played. The weird thing is, like, once you pick a team in Pokemon Go, you can't switch whatsoever, which was really annoying.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you would be like, oh, what's this new game? Oh, I'm gonna play. I'll just pick a team. I'll be able to change it later. And then you'll find out that your friends were on different teams, and then you're like, well, now we can't play together. Because like you as a team, like the overarching team can go and take gyms and stuff in locations in the actual world, which is very strange. And I had to stop playing that game because at the time there were 2 Pokestops within reach of my desk at work, which meant that every 10 minutes I was just opening my phone and swiping to get items, because that's a healthy thing to do while trying to hold down a job. Yes, I was on Team Mystic. My sister is on Team Instinct, and I almost kind of wish I was on Instinct with her. Instinct has the smallest population, as far as I understand. Yeah.
And I kind of did the same thing as you. I opened the game and it's like, oh, blue's a pretty color, I'll pick that. And later, like, my coworkers like lambasted me for 5 minutes about like the ethical implications of choosing blue and not yellow, and I'm like, it's a game.
Yeah.
Color.
Yeah, it was weird because I told my sister and she was like, I can't believe you're Mystic at all. And it had been like, and I hadn't played in months, and I was like, it was a thirst for knowledge, and I'm a nerd. Leave me alone. Like, so, yeah.
Yeah. So
anyway,
for our characters, I mean, Nelson would think about it for a long time, I think.
Yeah. He might. Yeah, Nelson might do like Cheaty on The Good Place.
I just started watching The Good Place.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah, it really
Yo.
is.
I've only seen the first season.
I've heard
It's
good things
so
about it.
good.
It's really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I love that. I love that.
I
That's
feel
one of my like. I'm on the second season.
No spoilers. Best plot twist in a
Yes.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes. I would say so.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, when you describe the three teams, Greg, you basically kind of perfectly described Regan, Brennan, and Nia in that order. So those are kind of gimmies, I think.
Mhm.
Kat in the chat is worried that we're gonna have a fight about Jen again. To which I say, you know what? Jen contains multitudes, and this is what happens. So deal with it.
Great.
Yeah,
Well-
so that I think that pretty solidly answers that.
Does
I don't think we
it?
really answered it. We said
We got like 3.
we did the 3 easy ones and then didn't. Talk
Yeah, the
about
rest
it.
are really tricky, right?
Well,
Yeah.
Because even Nia, I feel like the knee jerk is definitely the mystic knowledge seeker, and certainly compared to the other characters, that would be her sort of. If there was one choice, but then she is also very team player oriented
Yeah.
as well. So, yeah.
I now
Yeah,
just
tough.
want to fight about Jen just to please chat. So I will take a stand. Jen is strongly on the blue team. I forget which
Blue
name was
is
the blue
what now?
team.
Blue is Valor.
Blue is Mystic.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that. I was just trying to pick a fight.
You just picked blue. I don't hate that though. I don't hate that.
Yeah, no, I think maybe foremost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well. I
Oh, I
guess
think-
still
I think
deal
we're in
with it,
agreement.
Kat. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We've answered
Let's,
that about as well as the McElroy brothers answer their
It's the
advice.
process.
So,
This is
yeah.
our first step.
It's the process. Right,
Yes.
Exactly.
Chat,
The
by the
long
way.
form answer is
Yeah.
Stay tuned for 2020.
to be
Um,
continued.
Yes.
I should say we've been going for about an hour and a half now, so we're probably going to begin to wrap up the stream. Anyone in chat, if you have some last questions you want to get in, type them in chat now. We'll try to answer them real quick. But
BRB, I'm turning on my AC. Hold up.
but
You know what I just realized would be pretty good joke actually is if as we continue to be slow making episodes, we kept doing Ask the Once and Future Nerd, but just make up details that didn't happen. Like if we answered questions for episodes that don't exist. I was funnier in my head and then I pitched it out loud. And then
I couldn't hear it very well.
Oh, okay. I was just saying we should keep doing Ask the Once and Future Nerds about episodes that haven't happened and just make stuff up, which I get. You know what? That's funnier if we weren't writing the show, I realize.
Yeah.
Because we do kind of just make up what happens. So,
I mean, that
Never
kind of
mind.
sounds like our writers' meetings.
That's exactly
Yeah.
Writer's room.
yeah.
It's like
Okay.
it was really interesting when Nelson fought a basilisk, and then I was like, "What if Nelson fought a basilisk?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Good effort for a joke.
Yeah.
Alyssa in chat says that she really likes Bryce's soldiers.
AKA the E Street Band.
Yeah, big fan of those people. So glad you're appreciating them. Someone on Reddit recently realized that Bryce is supposed to be Bruce Springsteen. So for anyone who hasn't
That was
made the
really
connection yet,
exciting.
I don't remember if we've discussed it on stream or on the podcast, but Bryce Riverfell, like Bruce Springsteen, it's supposed to tie
That's
together.
hilarious.
And his fort is Freehold, and Bruce Springsteen is from Freehold, New Jersey.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love it.
It's pretty good.
His
Everything in every town name in Monmouth County is actually pretty fantasy. It's like Colt's Neck, Freehold, Red Bank. The Horse's Head Inn is because Colt's Neck. by the way.
yeah,
Mhm.
and his side or his second in
BRB.
command was Clarence, who's a particularly big man. So that's the big man. In chat, spoiler alert,
Yeah,
we did kind of spoiler murder Bryce. That's actually something we can talk about real quick as we're wrapping up. While we were writing that, we were talking about feeling as though there are consequences for the actions. Like, we felt like we went a little while without any of the characters really feeling consequences for the choices they made. So sorry we had to do that to you all, but we felt like we needed to kind of keep it real for a minute.
Yeah, everybody kind of got lucky for a little while, and eventually that luck had to run out.
Yeah, we were tearing up about that too. We really like Bryce, so we were very sad to see him go. We were trying to think of ways to not let it happen, but it seemed like it was the way that it had to happen.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring things down somber again at the end of the stream.
And enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we do to bring the mood up before we wrap up? Do we?
I was going to let people shout out anything they want to shout out again, so we can just celebrate Luke Cage a little bit more and Shannon's awesomeness in that. Does anyone else have anything
really
they want
good.
to shout out?
I gotta. I'm bringing back I have like a public access television show, so it goes up again. Yeah, it's been doing. I mean, it's been running actually. I guess I'm just really bad about talking about my own stuff, but it's been doing reruns, and so now the second season is coming up July 16th.
Oh, nice.
But you can just catch it on the YouTube channel. Just watch it on YouTube because there's so many different channels because it's public access. So like if you have a different watch it on YouTube. But yeah.
Will you post it on your website, on your Facebook page and whatnot?
Yes.
What's the channel?
Please do that.
Oh, it's the channel is the Notice Blog, and you can find it at the thing is like YouTube / the Millennial Group LLC because I can't find the Notice Blog for YouTube. But just Google not Google, search for YouTube or what were you saying, Shannon? You were saying something. Sorry.
Post it to your Facebook page.
Oh yeah, go to my Facebook page. Yeah. Because I'll post on my Facebook page all the time.
Or if you have Twitter or your other social media platforms.
Should I point to? Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. The Notice Blog on Twitter, the Notice Blog on IG, the Notice Blog on Facebook, and the Notice Blog on YouTube. Just search it. It's right there, all in one word.
Put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put a link down to it. Everyone, check out the Notice Blog. We'll put all the links and everything.
First episode, I talked to a cartoon duck for like 5 minutes, so you just gotta watch it. It's great.
It's must-see TV right there.
It's must-see. Just beautiful writing right there. Can't beat it.
Nice.
But yeah, all right, that's it.
Luke Cage season 2, especially episode 11.
Luke Cage season 2, episode 11. Alyssa in chat points out the Penumbra podcast new episode is coming out this week.
Yo.
So we can check that out. Also, in case anyone missed it, very recently the Bright Sessions wrapped up, so catch the ending of that. Ars Paradoxica also wrapped up. Check out that. Greg has a podcast, another podcast.
A podcast called Left Trigger, Right Trigger, and we do YouTube stuff. We try to put out 2 to 3 videos a week on YouTube, and I'm just realizing I just put that out in the world, and now that means we have to do it every week for the rest of eternal time. But yeah, we do Battle Brunch on Sundays, almost every Sunday at 11-ish Eastern, where we stream a game that involves battle.
Again, Greg?
I'm sorry?
What's the name of it again?
Left Trigger, Right Trigger. And we actually have if you want to see any of the YouTube stuff, it's just Let's Play things in video games. So it's youtube.com/Left Trigger, Right Trigger. We managed to get a custom URL.
Ooh.
Yeah, and
Very
stay
nice.
tuned for maybe website.
Oh. Hey now you're getting dangerous.
I know. I gotta.
Fire there. Come on now.
Great.
It's gonna be a thing. It's, you know. I mean, I gotta get serious about things. Yes.
Oh no! Oh god.
Very good.
Perfect. That's the press conference glasses.
For a second and tabbed back. I was like, oh fuck.
For those listening to the audio, Greg put back on the glasses.
Yes.
Glasses.
They've returned. That's returned.
Okay, so check that out. Check out everyone's stuff. I want to do
Mario Joe Scarborough. That's what you should name those glasses. They are a Mario version of Joe Scarborough glasses. So good.
They are. If you can't see, if you are watching the, I'm just holding up. They are 8-bit glasses.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Look at that. Mario Joe Scarborough. Bam.
I like that.
I wanna
Yeah.
let everybody know my wife's improv team, the musical improv team, most of whom were there to record Maddy Groves. They have a show coming up on this coming Thursday night, as you're hearing it,
Nice.
the 28th, at the Pit Striker in Manhattan. I'll put by the time the audio for this goes up on the podcast feed, the show will have passed, but I'll do some social media so you can find the link. But they now perform under the name Night Captain, and you can find Night Captain on Facebook, and you get all the details for their shows. I will definitely be at that show. I think Ian may be there as well. So if you want to come and say hi, I will be there. And yeah, I've never seen these guys do a bad show. They're incredible. So
Cool.
Yeah, so if you're watching the live stream now, if you're in New York, go check that out. If you're listening on the podcast, I'm sure they'll do another show eventually. Sorry you missed that one. One last shout out I meant to mention earlier, based on one of our metrics, the Once and Future Nerd has now passed 10,000 subscribers. So,
Hey.
Oh,
that's pretty
Nice.
sweet.
Yo.
Nice.
Thank
Great.
you everyone for
Sweet.
listening. Thank you for subscribing. It's a pretty exciting
my
moment for
God.
us, and hopefully
Good stuff.
on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, man. Let's do this.
that's what's
Yes.
up.
So with that,
Ooh.
Excelsior.
yeah.
What's
Thank
that?
you.
How does it go? Is it?
Hey, oh, the whoo, shoot, shoot. And I mean, like, it has to be like a leg that's going at the same time. It's really hard. I get out of breath every 2 seconds I do it. It's too much. It's too much. Very, very difficult.
That was a victory dance, Zach.
That was a big
That was the victory dance.
an
Awesome.
attempt at a victory dance.
the attempt.
That was an awesome
For real.
victory dance. I think that is the
That's
best.
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hey, hey, hey.
Yes! Yes! Come on, Zach.
Yeah, hey, hey, that I can do.
Everybody's
We need a-
speakers.
we need a
or at
dab
least
from you,
my
Zach.
ears.
Do it.
I don't know if I can do it.
Hey,
You can do it, Zach. Come on.
do it.
All right,
Damn.
I can't do it. I think
Next time we'll build up to it.
I'll practice for next
You
time.
can
Yeah,
sing it.
practice.
I think that's a good as spot as any to end. So thank you
Yeah.
everyone for listening. Thank you.
You have time. The next chapter will be out in like 3 years at current. levels, so.
Oh yeah, I guess we should mention we're doing our best to crank that out. We're going to have another little bit of a hiatus, just because real life things take time. But
Yeah.
we'll get that.
In all honesty, I've just been super slammed with my day job, and I keep managing to have pet emergencies and things like that. So thank you everybody for being so patient, and it's not for lack of caring about you or the show that things take so long, but we're always working on it. We're always thinking about it.
Yeah.
True that. Yo, you grinding.
So.
And thanks. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it.
I was gonna say thank you. Thanks, man. Like Chris, Zach, like you guys have been busting your ass. I do want to like show some appreciation because it's such a thankless job. It's just like I just gotta like show up and then that's it. I just like have a Google Calendar thing and I'm like, all right, that's it. Like it's like countless nights like balancing the day job along with like this long epic. It's not a 5-minute episode. I mean, that's crazy. Like I struggle. It takes me months to do like a 5-minute episode. You do entire like epic storylines. Hey man, you're doing a good job. That's all I gotta say. So yeah.
Well, thanks. And it really wouldn't be anything without
Hey.
you guys and everyone else who do everything you do for the show as well. So thank you to our whole cast, even especially those who couldn't make it today for the live stream.
Yeah, even those assholes.
I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it that way.
Oh, he couldn't help it. He couldn't help it. Liberty, yeah, man. Oh, you mean those? I mean, some people. Whatevs. No shade. It's fine. Whatevs. Perfect.
That's not what I meant.
Oh, so
I
good.
love you all. You're all amazing. We try to schedule as many people as we can on these. And it's normally my fault for picking the time which works for as many as possible, and I unfortunately have to exclude the people who can't make it at this
but I,
time.
li- I like making Zach schedule these things because then he knows my pain.
That's true. I could be the bad guy for once. So
Perfect.
anyway, with that, thank you everyone on the live stream. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.